Because Napoleon did something which nobody was able to do for a decade. So when Napoleon came back, he had shown that he was a very good administrator, he was a very good general, and more than that, people now wanted stability. See, revolution or revolutionary ideas till one point are okay. But after a certain point, they start to become frustrated with it. And therefore, in 1799, when he captured power, everybody knew that he was not a, a royalist, not a Jacobean, but he was a person who could give France what it wanted. So he basically used the despicable position or the very bad position of France very well to very simply say to the people, I have the solution, let me capture power. And the military captured power under Napoleon, nobody said nothing. Napoleon himself had actually made his career during the French Revolution. He came from a very small island called Corsica. Corsica was ruled by France, and when he reached France, he reached there when the French Revolution had begun. He truly believed in the ideals of the French Revolution, which is democracy, freedom, fraternity, at this point of time, 1799. And throughout the French Revolution, when the Revolutionary War started in 1792, he was ready to go and fight for it. He defeated Prussia, he defeated Austria, he also defeated certain very important, what we call as enemies, at certain very important battles. So he was a very celebrated general in that sense. So when he came back, he saw that what type of chaos has actually been produced or what is actually there in France. He said, enough is enough, I will capture power. And people let him capture power because he was seen as the solution. So Napoleon does not drop from the sky. He was actually connected to the French Revolution via the Revolutionary War. Now, Napoleon knew what was really needed. Because one thing you can guarantee about Napoleon is that he's a very good administrator. So Napoleon, what he did was that first he wrote a new constitution, which is their fourth constitution, which is called the consulate rule. It's called the consulate rule because of the 3 council plus 3 houses, tricameralism, and he became first council himself. Now, the first thing which Napoleon will do will now start political, economic, educational, and religious reforms. Politically, because France had not followed any standard policy, he will introduce what are called the Napoleonic codes. He will bring a code for civil procedure. He will bring a code for criminal procedure. He will have a commercial code, consulate rule, because 3 councils are ruling. It is a type of republic only, but we call it consulate rule because consuls are ruling. This is the 4th constitution written by Napoleon himself. So very simply, Smita and Nagaraja, pay attention. Yes, consul means director only, in a way. They were called directory rule. See, after 1793, all constitutions are republican constitutions, but the executives are changing. You have 3 executives which are called consuls. Previously, they were called directors. 5 directors, 3 consuls. Now, Napoleonic codes were very important in stabilizing France because it gave them a commercial policy, it gave them a criminal procedure, a civil procedure, a code of criminal procedure and a code of civil procedure, and code for civil proceedings and how people need to be tried in criminal courts. So he very simply gave decisive leadership. But what France actually needed was that by 1802, Napoleon will stop the war. The war which had started in 1792, after 10 years of fighting, Napoleon will finally stop that war. Economically, what he will do is that the Bank of France, their central bank, will be established in 1800. He will now give people loans so as to rebuild their lives. He will thereafter also try to revive some of his colonies which were there in the Americas. He will try to have a good relationship with his neighbors so as to have import-export. So now he is giving what people should have given in 1791 itself, which is political and economic stability. He will also understand the importance of education and therefore start to rebuild the universities. He will himself appoint a lot of the teachers of the University of Paris. He will try to encourage people to learn literature, to remember the ideals of the French Revolution. He will be the one who will actually also talk about primary, secondary, tertiary, or what we call as primary, secondary, higher education, and the concept of vocational education. So educationally also he tried to give France a generation which was read and could understand what the French Revolution actually meant. But the master stroke which basically Napoleon did was to find a solution with the church. See, France is a Catholic country. It's a very, very, very religious country in that regard. And what Reign of Terror had done, or what Robespierre had done, was taken away all the land of the church. And all the land of the church being taken, the church used to always say that, give us back our land. Now, Napoleon said to the Pope. So here you have a person called Pope Pius VII. And the religious reforms are called the Concordat. In the Concordat, what happens is Napoleon says to the Catholic Church, I will make Catholicism or Catholic Christianity as the state religion. I will recognize it. I am ready to protect you. However, in doing so, you will give me two things. First, you will stop asking for all the land which you were asking. And second, you will now ask me for every appointment you do. So from one hand, he gives power to the church, whilst on the other hand, he takes the power from the church. Now, between 1799 and 1803, Napoleon is able to stabilize France. And that is what France was looking forward to. So I'll repeat this whole story with you from the PPT. It's making sense to you because I want to just repeat this whole. I will talk about the economic and again the ones. The church had to agree. If not, Napoleon would have killed the Pope itself. Now, very simply, France was in a despicable position when Napoleon came back to France or to Paris. High inflation, very, very bad fiscal position. The government was corrupt. And now the bourgeoisie, the people wanted stability over the lofty ideas of the revolution. Now, Napoleon had already proved himself multiple times by defeating Italy or Italian states and Austria. He had been spreading the ideals of the revolution. He was born in a small island of Corsica and thereafter had education in the French military school and became a commander through his talent during the French Revolutionary Wars. Now, he was neither a leftist or a rightist, but during the French Revolution, what he did was that he tried to make sure that the ancient regime was fully gone. He was also very, very happy that his hometown was getting a better understanding under the new regime which was there. Napoleon, for a very brief period, also became a Jacobean when the royalists were very, very powerful. But he also made sure that once the reign of terror was gone, the king does not come back. And he will therefore write the fourth constitution of France, which is called consulate rule or consulate constitution. Now, under this is a draft which he wrote himself. 3 consuls, first consul himself. Legislative body, 3 of them. So 3 executive, 3 legislative bodies. His major focus was to establish peace and have what we call as peace with neighbors itself. He will stop the war of the second coalition, which is basically he will defeat Austria in 1801 and he will make peace with England, who had also got involved by this point of time in this war. He will also bring peace back to Europe after a decade. But the irony is, I will tell you what is going to happen next. He will focus on good administration, retain the principles of equality and eliminate privileges, and Napoleonic codes were the most important form in that. So the Napoleonic codes of 1804, again, nobody is asking you the details. He had 5 codes: civil code, penal code, commercial code, and code of procedure for civil and what we call as criminal procedure. Now, both old and radical laws were mixed together. Court hearings were now open, anybody could sit, it was not closed judicial hearings, and women rights were still not there, but principle of equality before law was still retained. Now he goes for the next set of educational reforms or reforms, which is he now takes away the church's control over the universities and over the schools. He will bring in the concept of primary, secondary, technical, and university education. Vocational schools will be started. He will appoint prominent teachers himself and promote literature, art, and sciences, believing that the people will learn, then only they will understand. What is a commercial code? Basically, none of the merchants were ever supported by the state. So he will have a code through which he will have a proper economic policy, basically, a economic policy. Thereafter, he will go for economic reforms. He will establish the Bank of France in 1800, give loans to the citizens, redistribute the land, develop means of transportation, and he will also promote automation, which is bringing in a little bit of machines. Exhibitions were there for French commodities so that people could buy it, and he will also try to revive some of the colonies which had been lost in this process of the French Revolution. Now, the most important thing which he did was Concordat. From where is the money having? He is having money. France always had money. It was the mismanagement of funds which was the problem. So when the royalty was gone, the king was gone, a lot of money had opened. But the problem was nobody was not streamlining it. It's not that it started to rain money. It's a better management of that money. With Bank of France coming, they have now started to take loans. There were better way of the state to work together. It's not that France was a poverty stricken country, it had money, but the problem was mismanagement. And that is what Napoleon has now been able to solve briefly. Understand this point? Briefly. Now, with Pope Pius the Seventh, he went into what we call as the Concordat, under which Catholicism was made state religion, which is still today France is a Catholic country. And he will now say, give me concessions. So Pope will say, I will not appoint any bishop without your permission. The church will abandon all the rights or all the claims over property. The Gregorian calendar, that January, February, March calendar will be reintroduced. And the church will be now brought under full state supervision, and it could not act on its own. Now, very simply, now before going into this part, we have seen two phases. 1789 to 1799. This tenure is the period of chaos. And 1799 to 1803 is the period of stability, wherein Napoleon has done a lot of things. Are we clear with regards to these two phases? Come on. Because now we are finished. We are just reaching the end story, but we are getting it connected with the next part of the story, which is the what we call as the unification of Germany and Italy. Are we totally on the same page? This is not heavy. Nobody's asking you all of this. Now I think you realize why do I say that nobody can ask a question from these areas, because these are very big sectors and 250 words is not enough to write any of this. So when they are going to ask you a question, they will always ask you cause or significance of the acts of Napoleon, and that is basically bringing in stability. That is it. So anybody has any issue till 1789 to 1803, right now you tell me. If no, then only we move forward. I want everybody's assertion. Yes, land is redistributed from the Catholic Church and given to the people. What can be learned from these? Be a quick. Kishan, listen to me. Cause, significance. Cause, significance. Cause you've already done. Significance I can only do once I finish this period. All of this is backstory. I can't teach significance without telling you what Napoleon actually did. What to do with all this information. Enjoy it. You tell me. You go through any video. You go through multiple books. I'm telling you the story of French Revolution. That's it. Enjoy it. Not everything which I tell you is to be learned. And that is what I'm trying to emphasize. If you can remember that timeline and if you can remember these points, your work is done. So very simply, can I now talk about the period between 1804 and 1815? Why did the church agree to these conditions? Because Napoleon is not a very, very weak ruler. He's a very strong personality, and the Pope does not really have any other choice. Remembering cause and significance, Puja, is enough. I will show you the questions also. Previously, they've asked this only. Okay. Can I move forward? See, I will tell you the story of the First World War also. I will tell you the story of the Second World War also. That doesn't mean that the story of First World War or story of Second World War will come. My job is to tell you everything. Your thing is that, sir, tell us cause and significance and let's move on. Then so within 3 classes, I'll finish everything. So that is not the way we go forward. Try to understand the purpose of the class. I am telling you what to learn and not learn. Half of the teachers don't do that. They will say, learn everything. I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you cause significance is what really matters. Pay attention to those. Enjoy this period. That's it. Okay. Will Napoleon policy will not be asked? Sneha, they can basically ask the contribution of Napoleon. But the contribution of Napoleon is not complete. I will tell you what to remember from them. Because Napoleon is not just connected to this story, it's connected to one more story. So don't worry about Napoleon right now. Napoleon concept is important for mains examination. Yes, I will tell you that. Don't tell me. I will tell you that. Wait. Either it's unreal for you that I'm not asking you to learn it. If I will say, sir, if I will say learn, you will say, sir, it's heavy. So tell me, what do you want me to say? Should I say that yes, learn it, or should I say not learn it? The simple straightforward point is the story is still not over. Can I complete the story? Because now Napoleon will do something which basically we would not want him to do. Okay. Now, see, Napoleon was stabilizing France. Napoleon was. Can we get a question comparing Napoleon and Samudragupta? I don't know where you get that concept from. No. One is sitting in India, one is sitting in France. Other thing, their periods are different. He's an ancient ruler, Gupta period. This is France. So this type of school type questions don't come. UPSC is not dumb. They will not ask you. But then compare Gandhi and Napoleon. Periods are different. I will show you the previous year questions also. So don't worry about that. Now, there is no relation. Then you're basically asking me to compare Nicaragua with India. What's the point? Okay. Between 1799 and 1803, just because we call Samudragupta the Napoleon of India doesn't mean that they can ask you a question. As it is, that relation or that way of saying is wrong, because Napoleon was not even born when Samudragupta was operating. So rather, Napoleon becomes the Samudragupta of France. So leave these. These are problematic ways in which people teach. I don't say that ever. So don't worry about that. Okay. And as it is, Napoleon never had the power which Samudragupta had. Leave it. Why am I doing it also? Leave it. Okay. 1799, 1803 is a period in which France is getting stabilized. Now, one would argue that Napoleon is doing all of this to stabilize France. One would argue that basically he's trying to stabilize France, and that is why Napoleon is doing this for the French people. But what he does in 1804 proves that he was not doing it for the people, but for himself. Because in 1804, he will say that I am consul for life, and he will declare himself emperor of France. He will take away all the constitutional mechanisms. He will take away everything which was called as democracy. And now Napoleon became the Emperor of France. And now Napoleon will say, I want to spread the notions and the ideas of the French Revolution. People will say, okay. But the people say, how? Napoleon says, now I want to conquer whole of Europe. I want France to be a big empire, and I will conquer everything which is around France, and I will conquer our enemies, which is the English, and he will now basically start what are called the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon, after stopping the war in 1802, within 2 years will again start a war, and he will attack Austria, Prussia, and Holy Roman Empire. And what is significant is that Napoleon will be able to defeat all of three. He will be able to defeat Austria, he'll be able to defeat Prussia, he'll be able to defeat Holy Roman Empire. And he will be so powerful in this sector, by 1806, he will defeat the Holy Roman Empire and dissolve it also. What I want from you is, just remember this. Can you remember this for the exam? For me, that Napoleon defeated the Holy Roman Empire and dissolved it. This basic line you have to remember, because this is very significant for the next module for unification of Germany and Italy. Napoleon defeated Holy Roman Empire and dissolved it. I will tell you the significance of this line when I will go to module number 3. But as of right now, he was the one who defeated Austria, Prussia, and Holy Roman Empire, and will now start to expand in Europe very quickly. But now Napoleon has a problem. Napoleon has to now defeat England. What is Holy Roman Empire? Basically, I showed you that Holy Roman Empire is this. This is Holy Roman Empire. Nothing holy, nothing Roman. Just that the emperor, the Holy Roman Emperor, had the Ashirvad of the Pope. That is why it's Holy Roman. That's it. It's the basically German states together. So very simply, the Holy Roman Empire will be defeated by Napoleon. He will defeat Austria, Prussia. But now his biggest issue is England. England is an island nation. Napoleon doesn't have a very good army and not even a very good navy. So against England, he will follow a policy which is called the continental system. And the continental system was that he wanted to choke the English. He said nobody will trade with the English. So he wanted to basically choke the island called England or United Kingdom. Now, England did the same on France, but England had a ace up its sleeve, and the reason why the continental system did not work. Can anybody tell me what was the reason why the continental system did not work really? Yes, very good. India. Because by 1804, 1805, this period, India was a very important colony which England had. The simple straightforward point was the continental system was never going to work on England. But when the English did it on the French started to get suffocated. And in this suffocation, in 1810-11, he will take the worst decision of his life, which is that Napoleon says, now I will go to Russia. And Napoleon forgot about one thing, which is that Napoleon wanted to go to Russia in the winters. And The winters in Russia are extremely cold. The Siberian winters are very, very cold. Napoleon will go with 50,000 men and he will return with 10,000 men. Most of them died of cold and starvation. And once he came back, all these countries together, Austria, Prussia, and England, came together in what is called the Battle of Nations in 1812. They will defeat Napoleon. Napoleon will not have the power to resist them. And France will be defeated in 1812 in what is called the Battle of Nations. And the Treaty of Leipzig will be signed. Now, Napoleon will be sent to a small island called Elba because the French people believed that Napoleon was doing this for them. He will be given a pension and said that you sit in this small island whilst the other European powers figure out what to do with Europe. However, Napoleon was too ambitious. What he did was he came back, now asked the people to join him. And in 1814, he will fight his last battle, which is called the Battle of Waterloo, in which he, along with his personal army, is going to fight the same powers. He will now be defeated comprehensively and he will be exiled to a small island again, which is called St. Helena. By 1815, France had been defeated, and in 1815, France had come full circle because at Vienna, all these victor powers will meet, which is called the Congress of Vienna, and their first decision is going to be restore the Bourbons back, and Louis the 18th will be brought back and restored as the monarchy of France. So France started with monarchy, ended with monarchy. And this is basically the story of Napoleon and France and the mighty French Revolution. So very simply, Napoleon is going to start the war and he's going to become a dictator by 1804. He will take away the freedom of the press. He will imprison all his political opponents, and he will now want to spread the ideas of the French Revolution. The purpose was conquest, and the point was this is going to lead to his downfall. In 1802, he will say, I am consul for life. In 1804, he will say, I am the emperor. Thereafter, he will start to fight with the French. The French will start to fight with the Austrians and the Prussians and the Holy Roman Empire. You just have to remember this point that the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved by Napoleon in 1806, whilst in the in the Battle of Trafalgar, French and Spanish were together, but English were able to give a very comprehensive defeat to them. Naval warfare was more or less useless for Napoleon generally. At the Battle of Austerlitz, Napoleon defeated Austria and Prussia. That was important for him because that is going to lead to the Holy Roman Empire getting dissolved. But then he will look towards England. And towards England, he will follow what is called the continental system. The continental system was that European countries could not now trade with English. There's an embargo around them, barricading the British Isles. Whilst the English were not really affected by the French system, when the French were suffocated by the English, they were very, very, very effective. And therefore, Napoleon had no other option but to take the blunder move of going to Russia, which is called the Moscow campaign. So in 1812, he will go for the Moscow campaign. He will attack Russia in 1812. Thereafter, the Russians will do something. They will say, okay, you want to conquer us? Come till Moscow. And Moscow is very cold in this sector. The Napoleonic War or the Napoleon's army is going to perish because of hunger and severe winters. In the Battle of Nations, Napoleon will be defeated. The Treaty of Fontainebleau will be signed. Napoleon will be removed as emperor, sent to Elba with a pension of 20 lakh francs, which was a very big amount. Whilst all of this was happening, the Congress of Vienna will meet and the Bourbon restoration will happen, which is that bring back Louis XVIII. However, Napoleon was still not very, very convinced that he wanted to do this. So rather, he will take the advantage of disagreement, enlist people into his own army, and he will fight the seventh time with this coalition in what we call as the Battle of Waterloo. He will be exiled to St. Helena. his dictatorial attitude, his ambition, his prolonged warfare, his not very good implementation of continental system, the surge of nationalism, and the fact that he made Spain first a friend and then a foe, and his weak navy meant that Napoleon was never going to defeat England in this battle. And with this, the French Revolution story is over. Now, if you allow me, I would like to give you a summary of cause and talk about significance, but I hope all of this makes sense. This 1789 to 1815 period is nothing but a big joke, which is going from one point to the other and basically destroying everything from themselves only. Yes? Okay. Now, let's do one thing. Let's discuss cause. I'll again give you the timeline with all the things which you have to remember. Fifth, sixth constitution, I will tell you that is not right now, later. What is the connection between Tipu Sultan and Napoleon? French were a very good ally of the Mysorean sector of Tipu Sultan. As soon as any connection between Tipu Sultan and Napoleon was found, the third and the fourth Anglo-Mysore wars were done so that no support was given to Tipu Sultan or Mysore from France itself. Okay, now, why was Napoleon not killed? Because people of France did not hate Napoleon. So he was always protected by his people. Now, cause. Political. I'm now summarizing. And we'll take a break and then come back and start the next unit. Political, economic, social, intellectual, immediate. In political, you have absolutist kings, no representative body, political power with first and second estate, social, three estate model, social discrimination, then no Bank of France, all taxes on third estate, famines, agricultural distress, enlightenment, plus American Revolution, administrative mismanagement, corruption, bread riots. So this is basically the gist of causes. You have to just write one line and it should be enough. Anybody has an issue here? Pooja, because once France gets choked, they have no other option but to move towards Russia for resources. Anybody has any issue here? Yes, no, have to say something. Seventh coalition is the coalition of these countries fighting with France. You have the first coalition in 1792. Then they fight again, so they change their names. Okay. Okay. Why English not captured power over France? Because for capturing France is not an option. That the French are not that weak. Okay. There is no connection between Continental System and Charter Act of 1813. Again, don't try to find connections where they don't exist, something like that. Please try to understand this point. That is laissez-faire politics, Adam Smith, 1813, 1833. Totally different concept. Continental system may have created pressure on the British, and the fact is that yes, because continental system had not allowed the English to trade with anyone else, the English traders wanted opening up of India, which they did. But there's no direct connection. It is the situation which is created in that sense. Okay. Now we go to the timeline. All the dates which are important: 89, 91, 93, 92, 94, 95, 99. Okay. Napoleon declared himself imperial ruler. Why Napoleon seen as with respect? Because people still believed that Napoleon was a solution for France's problem, and he stabilized. And if Napoleon is saying that I will expand the boundaries of France, people will still see with him respect only. Try to understand. You are absorbing the British type of understanding that he's a dictator. For the people of France, he was expanding France. Okay. This is French Revolution. This first constitution. Constitutional monarchy. And the concept is very straightforward. National Assembly becomes Legislative Assembly. War with Prussia and Austria. This will go on till 1802. Then second constitution, Republic, Reign of Terror, Thermidorian reaction. This is third constitution, Directory rule. Thereafter, consulate rule, Napoleon, consul for life, Napoleon claims himself emperor, Napoleonic Wars start, Moscow campaign, Waterloo, Battle of Waterloo, Congress of Vienna, Bourbon Restoration. Louis 18th back. Anybody has any issue here? Again, if you can remember this basic timeline, Waterloo is a place. Battle of Waterloo. Anybody has any issue here? Come on, have to be more vocal. No issue. No. Okay. Now let's talk about significance. Talk about significance. Reason for urbanization: monarchies will bring back monarchies only, right? I am no understand in 1804 era. 1804 to 1814 is the period in which he's fighting wars. Becomes emperor, fights wars, gets defeated by the English in their own game, and then goes to Moscow, gets defeated, then comes back, then again tries to fight, and then gets defeated at Waterloo. Okay. Please write treaty name which is signed after 1812. Doesn't really matter, Kishan. You want to write Fontebleau, you write Fontebleau. I really don't care about it. And as it is given in the PPT. But if I'm not writing it, it doesn't really matter. It's not modern India that you remember all the treaties. So when I'm not writing something in this type of slide, it is not important for that period. So we have discussed the causes, we've discussed the timeline. Now I'm going to go into the third, which is significance. This is where the questions come from, and this is where you need to understand what is the significance of the French Revolution. Prima facie, does French Revolution actually have any significance generally? Was it successful? No. Very good. But can't write it in the examination. So, French Revolution was an important phase in world history as it brought, or rather as it showed what political nationalism means. People come together for political change and democracy. So now you've tasted two flavors of nationalism: economic and political. Unification of Germany, Italy is cultural nationalism. So second is, it gave to the world the mother of all preambles and constitutions, which is Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Introduced new ideologies such as fraternity, and revolutionary spirit and symbols. Fourth, Napoleon paved the way for unification of Germany and Italy. This point I have to teach you now. Thereafter, French Revolution showed the power of the people and their hunger for change. And more than that, Napoleonic reforms played important role in stabilizing France. More than enough to write 250 words. Anybody has any issue in the significance? They're not basically very heavy significances, but can't do anything about it. So cause significances clubbed together, asked separate question, how elaborate significance. Mostly they're asked separately. What are the causes? What are the significance? Question cannot be too big. I'll give you two questions to show you what it is. Napoleonic reform played an important role in stabilizing France. What is the issue here? Yes, France was only stabilized by Napoleon's action. I'm going to give you two questions and you will understand the type of questions which can be made out of this area. Okay. Equality, and sure, why not? You can add equality here. Why not? You add whatever words you want to add. I'll give you two questions. Practice question. The causes of the French Revolution were more systemic to the French way of living and rule. Elaborate. Second, the French Revolution, though never achieved what it wanted, but created the context for change across the world. Comment. 250 words. Can you write these two answers? Or these two type of questions? First question is asking about what? What is it asking about? Causes. So you just have to list the causes. Second question. Significance. So you see, this is how they will frame it. The question seems to be very hi-fi, but the cause and significance thing is what is going to actually be asked. What does systemic to French way of living? Systemic, what is the way of living in France before the French Revolution happened? Shavik, come on, tell me. What is it? What is the way France used to live before the coming up of the French Revolution? Three-estate model. That's it. So basically, you have to talk about the problems with three-estate model, how it leads to social discrimination, and rule. Rule means political. So it's asking you about first and second estate issue and the rule way, which is estate general. Question 2, you have to mention how it did not achieve. No, Shelly, the question itself is saying it did not achieve what it wanted to do, but it created the context for change. You have to talk about significance. Read the questions closely. It is itself saying that French were never able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. But now, if you write all of these points, it automatically answers the second question. Significance given to us are not enough to complete 250 words. How to elaborate? If I count the words which are given here, this is close to 150 words. Add an introduction and a conclusion and use your mind, and you will be able to write an answer. You really want me to write an answer for you, because this question is going to come in the examination. See, the questions will always change, but the answers will always revolve around the same thing. So what significance I've given you, this is already 150 words. And in a 250 word answer, the conclusion and the introduction is 50 words maximum. So I'm actually writing answers for you. So it is not enough, it is enough. Look at it first, then talk about it. So you want me to write, this is point wise how you write it. And you can expand on any of these points if it comes in the examination. I will show you a previous year question. A whole previous year question was based on this point. That's it. So stop this thing where you want toppers notes, toppers answers, random answers, model answers. Use your mind, because in the examination, nobody's answer, you're going to write it yourself. So come out of this spoon feeding habit of getting your answers from someone. I'm giving you all the points. I could have not done this also. Significance, I can just write point wise, 4 points. But still I'm writing it down to show you how these points can be elaborated and how they are there. So within the PPT itself, everything is enough. So don't write subheadings. Don't do that. Don't do that. In a history question, introduction, paragraph, points, and then paragraph conclusion. End of story. So if you have been copying answers from someone else, that will never work in the examination. You are just copying, you're not using your mind. So change that. So very simply, new ideology. See, American and French Revolution together did, the American Revolution gave America independence. French Revolution did not give nothing to France. But what it did give was a revolutionary spirit, a new set of vocabulary, fraternity, equality before law, the declaration of right of marriage. These two are the most significant points itself. These two things were given to the world, and that is in itself very, very different. So I can make 5 types of questions, but the answers will always revolve around this, changing the emphasis about the points. Somehow now I feel that you don't know answer writing, because you're asking me questions which would have already been clear if you know, or you're not practicing answer writing. See, it is one thing to know a lot. It is one thing to put it down on paper. Now, if that is the case, then by the time we come to the later stages, I'll then give you certain tips of answer writing. Because what I feel is that you're not writing answers, because this type of answer question would not come. For a person who has been practicing answer writing, they will realize one thing: 150 words and 250 words are not a lot of words. You are actually not a lot of words. If you actually go on sitting down writing something good, it will always go above 400 to 500 words. But that is not the discussion I'm going to have here. The simple straightforward point is, we discussed cause, we have discussed the timeline, we've discussed significance. I've given you 2 questions. Try to attempt them. If that is the case, then I would like to start the 3rd module, and 2 major modules are done. Yes, history answers always have to be in a standard format. They have to be paragraph, point-wise paragraph. This way you will save words also, and it will also save your time, because if you will write in paragraph, you will use more words. This should be maximum 20 to 30 words. 20 to 30 words. This will change from 100 to 150 words. This is a standard way of writing the answer. Again, Anjali, I'm coming to 5th and 6th constitution. Let me first tell you that I have not taught you that. Is this clear, everyone? Because now you're digressing. Can we take a break, come back, and start the next module? Okay. So we have finished module number 2. Now we start module number 3. And this is the last big module which is left. After this, the taste will totally change of world history. This is the last one. That's it. Okay. You have to send these to iaslive@byju's.com. They will take 3 to 4 days to evaluate, but they will send your answer back for sure. Okay. Now, we take a break now, and we come back at 7:50. When we come back at 7:50, we will start our next module, which is unification of Germany. Your French Revolution, American Revolution is done. If you have questions, note them down. When I come back, I will be answering them. But stop this habit of looking for everybody to write an answer for you. Rather, use the points I'm giving you. I already am giving you more than anyone else is giving, which is basically cause, significance, timeline, summary in one place, which I give because I want you to revise quickly. That is it. So 51, I've taken your 1 minute. I'll give it back to you. Were an industrial nation by this point of time. They had the best army in the world. They had the best navy at this point of time. And therefore, the English were able to effectively do it. France also did not have a colony like India. England was able to undercut it through India. However, that will not be true of how we see it for France. France did have Indochina, but not very comprehensively. So the advantage with England had was better navy, India. Okay. Reason for Anglo-Welsh rivalry, that has been a standard feud for 4 to 5 centuries. 100 years war, 30 years war, this year war, that year war. It is all about territory. It's all about that proximity to each other, and it is based on territorial understanding. But that rivalry will very quickly end also. How will we start the introduction by mentioning these points? No, introduction is always about the context. You will say that the French Revolution happened between 1789 to this period. It was a significant phase in which France went through multiple changes. 4 different constitutions were written. However, the following are the reasons or the causes or what we call as the significance of these events. Okay. Can we enter module number 3, unification of Germany and Italy? Have any questions come in prelims examination? No. As I said, this is not a prelims section, it's a mains section. Indian history is asked in prelims, not mains. In what we call as not European history. When France got independence, always independent country. Now, France was never dominated. Now see, we are now entering module number 3. And there are 3 to 4 things which you need to know. First things first is that there are 2 parts to this module. One is the unification of Germany, and the second one is unification of Italy. Azhar, you can send an email. We'll sort it out. How many questions come from world history? Rahul, 1, 2, 2, 0 to 2, whatever you want to say. No, Kishan, nothing. This was a purely what we call as European war. World history is part of prelims. Ansh, you are telling me or asking me? If you're asking, then the answer is no, it is not part of prelims. If you're telling me, then no, it is not part of prelims. Okay. Asking, no, it isn't. Now, module number 3, unification Germany, Italy, 2 parts, Germany and Italy. Now, I want to say something beforehand. This is a disclaimer which you need to know. Why there is no Meiji Restoration, Japanese and Chinese history? Because you are preparing for UPSC, not for MA history. That is why. There's a difference. When you will do BA honors history, you will do Japanese, Chinese, European, Russian, American history. I've done it. But you're not preparing for that. You're preparing for UPSC. That is why. There's no end to history. Every continent has its own history. Now, the disclaimer is very straightforward. That this question, this area, module number 3, is the last heavy module which is there. So my only request to you is going to be, do not judge world history by module number 3. Second thing which I'm going to tell you is that this is a little bit heavy because there are cross connections and cross currents. And again, when I will bring everything together, it will actually make sense to you. But for that, we have to go through that painful process of understanding everything. So you have to pay attention. Third thing which I want to say is, here again, only one type of question comes, which is role of Bismarck in Germany and role of Cavour in Italy. Role of Bismarck in Germany and role of Cavour in Italy. How did they unify their countries? There is also one type of question which is role of Napoleon both in Italy and Germany. Other than that, everything else is generally standard. And you just have to understand it to understand Bismarck, Cavour and Napoleon. So very simply, You have to just understand that I am trying to reach Bismarck. I am trying to reach Cavour, but in order to do that, I have to go through a certain story. So module number 3 is the last pain which you have to endure. On Monday, we do Italy and then go into Industrial Revolution. Once we go into Industrial Revolution, we will shift to economic history, and then that whole World War thing will come. So, can you endure a little bit of pain with me? And if you can, we'll start our discussion. But even in that, I will try to simplify it as much as possible, and I'll try to make it as logical as possible. Okay, perfect. Now, we are starting unification of Germany and Italy module. And the question is very straightforward. That why is there a need for unification of Germany and Italy? Now let's try to understand Germany first. Now, when we talk about the German speaking states, now we are changing our orientation from economic nationalism to political to cultural, because what is common to all of these people is that they speak German language. Now, when we talk about the Germans, the first big issue which they have is that these states come under a very big empire, which is called the Holy Roman Empire. And the obstacle is that there are 314 small and big political units which make up Holy Roman Empire. Though whilst all of them would speak German, all of them would speak German, can 314 political leaders come to any conclusion? We'll talk about that, Sanskar. We'll talk about that. No. 5 people cannot agree in what they want to eat from Zomato. You're talking about 314 people, 314 rulers coming together and having an agreement. So the first issue is what we call as political fragmentation. I'm discussing why Germany automatically does not exist. There are multiple units. Political fragmentation is too much. But if I divide this whole sector around 2 axes, north, south, and east and west, then there are even more bigger issues in this area. See, the problem is north is Protestant, south is Catholic, and whilst the east is anti-French culture, west is influenced by French culture. So if it was not enough that there were political issues, they are religiously divided and culturally also divided. So there was no way automatic unification was going to happen. No way. I think we all can agree on this, that with religious, cultural, and political issues, automatic unification is out of the picture automatically. Anybody has any issue in understanding this? Which is the obstacles of unification automatically? How England became a country, how France became a country, how Austria became a country, how Prussia existed as a country. The problem is Holy Roman Empire has complicated the German story. As it is politically fragmented. Though they speak the same language, they're under too much fragmentation because of political, and they also have different cultures. Anybody has any issue till this point? Because now I start the story of their unification. No. Protestant Catholic, French anti-French, political fragmentation. Too many problems for them to automatically come together. Okay. Now, Protestant is their culture, is their religion. Yes, Luther came from north of Germany itself. Who wanted to unify them? I will tell you that. Now, the question which is that who want to unify them? All of them speak the same language, but they can't imagine coming together because of these issues. So we know that Holy Roman Empire is problematic because under it political fragmentation, then cultural and religious issues. Now Napoleon will become emperor. Napoleon become emperor 1804, and he will defeat the Holy Roman Empire and dissolve it in 1806. This is what I asked you to remember. Yes, that Napoleon defeated the Holy Roman Empire and dissolved it into 1806 dissolved it, which is that the Holy Roman Emperor is gone. But now there is a problem, that when Napoleon comes to power, he sees these 314 units and he tries to figure it out, why this political fragmentation. He's a very good administrator, but he doesn't like the way there is so much political fragmentation. So what Napoleon does is, under Napoleon, 314 units are consolidated into 39 units, which he named as Confederation of Rhine. Now, can there be agreement between 39 political units or 314 political units? 39. See, what Napoleon has done has simplified and consolidated the German speaking people. And this, in a way, allows for nationalism to rise. Are you getting why Napoleon is so important in this story? That what he basically does is that from this, he makes it into this, which is this 39 states together, all German speaking, and they now have a sense. Confederation means people coming together. Confederation, Congress of, or same word. They are synonyms. So this area which basically Napoleon creates now allows for nationalism to develop. Allows for nationalism to develop. So the role of Napoleon will be very similar in Italy and Germany, which is to simplify these areas administratively, and that is what is going to allow for German nationalism to rise. So Napoleon's role is extremely significant because unintentionally he has paved the way for unification. Are you getting this point? How Germany fought wars with how France fought wars, because the borders are not that solid. There was a certain border here which was of Austria and Prussia. The Napoleon went through Holy Roman Empire to fight with Prussia. So don't worry about that. So are we clear with regards to Napoleon and his role? Yes, fragmentation is still there, but 314 and 39 are two very different numbers. Are we clear with regards to Napoleon's role? Yes, no, because then I have to go and tell you two other backstories and then come back to the story. Okay, great. Madhur, what if you're saying no, you have to tell me what is not clear. Napoleon simplified this area. From Holy Roman Empire, it became Confederation of Rhine. Now, Vanshika, again, the people were saying no, tell me what aspect is not clear. The fact is, Holy Roman Empire is too politically fragmented. Napoleon dissolves it in 1806. Then Napoleon does something which is very simply consolidate this area into Confederation of Rhine. 314 units were never going to come together, but by making them, forcefully making them 39, he in a way simplified this area and consolidated it, therefore allowing for nationalism to rise, because under 339 units, they could feel a sense of nationalism. That is the only thing you need to remember. If this is clear, then I want to discuss two stories. Napoleon contribution, yes, is in a way fostering nationalism in Italy and Germany. Okay. Confederation of Rhine, because it is, yes, named after the river Rhine. Okay. Now, please pay attention. I have to go back to France to discuss one actor which is going to be very important in our story. And for that, I need to tell you the story of what happened after the French Revolution and Bourbon Restoration. So if you remember 1791, 1793, 1795, 1799, 1804, 1815. Very simply, you have 1791, the French Revolution, then constitutional monarchy, then you have the Republic. This is called the First Republic. Thereafter, you have one second. You have the consulate rule. I've mixed this up. This is constitutional monarchy, First Republic, Directory, then consulate, and thereafter you have Emperor Napoleon, and then Waterloo, or rather we'll say Bourbon Restoration. Louis the 18th. Now, just to complete the French story, between 1815 to 1848, France is a monarchy. Is a monarchy. The Bourbons are ruling, but monarchy is monarchy. They will do the same ideas. They will do the same things which they were doing previously. And by 1848, people get frustrated. Again. And in 1848, there is one more revolution which is called the Revolution of 1848. In 1848, the people again rise against the monarchy. And there's a saying which comes up, which is that when France sneezes, Europe catches a cold. This is given for Revolution of 1848. Because again, people will rise in France, but this time they will not just rise in France, they will rise across Europe. There will be hundreds of revolutions which will happen in Austria, in Prussia, in Denmark, in Netherlands, in France, and in other parts of Europe also. And when they get frustrated in 1848, they will write another constitution and they will become what we call as the Second Republic. They will write one more constitution. And under that constitution, there was a rule that a president will be there who will have 4 years fixed rule, meaning that a president can only be in power for 4 years. Now, the question was who to make the president of this new republic. And somehow they found no one else but the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. His name, Louis Napoleon. His name was Louis Napoleon. His uncle is Napoleon Bonaparte. And Louis Napoleon will become the first president of the Second Republic. But by 1852, when his tenure was getting over, he didn't like the fact that he had to give up power. And like uncle, like nephew, Louis Napoleon will proclaim himself emperor. And he will take the title Napoleon the Third. The Third. And between 1852 and 1870, Louis Napoleon or Napoleon III is going to be the ruler of France. Now you will ask me, why am I telling you this? Why not Napoleon? Because his father was Napoleon II. He is going to be Napoleon III. His uncle is Napoleon I, which is Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, third, as I said, because his father is going to be second. Now, why am I telling you this? Because this person, Napoleon III, is going to be important for our story later. So when I say Napoleon III, will you now be able to figure out where did this person come from? Why so much Louis? It's like Rahul. Their names, they like Louis name. Okay. Now, here again, he will be removed and Third Republic will come, which I will discuss with you later. Third Republic, which is when Napoleon III will die, they will again become a new republic. And this is the 6th constitution which they write. But for me, out of this story, Napoleon III is the first person you need to remember. And Revolution of 1848. Can you remember these 2 points? You will see this will make sense to you very quickly. But please, I'm trying to basically develop the backstories for the unification of Germany. So till this point, what we've understood is that Germany did not automatically exist because of the Holy Roman Empire. Napoleon played a very important role in consolidating this area from 314 to 39. And He was the one who, in a way, paved the way for unification of Germany. We went back to France to bring one of the actors who's very important in my story, which is Napoleon III. Napoleon III was the product of Revolution of 1848. Revolution of 1848 was basically a reaction to a very important system which was there, which I'm going to tell you now, which is called the Metternich Order, which I'm coming to. But Revolution of 1848 is the springtime of revolutions. Multiple revolutions will happen across Europe, will not be successful everywhere, but will be successful in France for sure. So where did this Napoleon come from? He's not the Napoleon Bonaparte. He's his uncle. He's the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay. Now, to explain to you Revolution of 1848, this is why I told you it's a heavy module. Understand this. 1815. Please pay attention. I'll bring everything together thereafter. 1815. Napoleon is sent to St. Helena. Anybody has any issue in that? Napoleon is defeated in Waterloo and is sent to St. Helena. That much you know? Yes or no? You know that 1815 is the year of Waterloo. Very good. Perfect. Napoleon. Perfect. Very good. This is the Napoleon. When I say Napoleon, I only mean Napoleon. When I say Napoleon the third, then I'm referring to his nephew. Okay. Now, when 1815 Napoleon is defeated and sent to St. Helena, now the Europeans have to figure out what to do with Europe. What to do with Europe? So they meet at Vienna, which is the capital of Austria, in what is called the Congress of Vienna. At the Congress of Vienna, Prussia, Austria, England meet together and now try to figure out what to do with France and Europe. So at the Congress of Vienna, first decision which is taken is Bourbon restoration in France, which is, as you already know, Louis XVIII coming back. Thereafter, they say push the boundaries of France back to 1792 map, which is that because Napoleon had expanded France quite a lot, they said use the 1792 map and France border will go back to that point. But the most important thing which they did was they established an organization which is called the Concert of Europe. It's called the Concert of Europe. And the Concert of Europe is basically, you can think of it like a precursor of the UN or the League of Nations. It's a pan-European body. And the Concert of Europe is under the leadership of an Austrian. His name, Metternich. Written like this also, Metternich. His name is Metternich. People used to call him Chancellor Metternich. And now Metternich is given a mandate. And this is called the Metternich system between 1815 to 1848. Metternich is given a mandate. The mandate which he gets is that protect the monarchies of Europe, do not allow another French Revolution, suppress nationalism in Europe. Based on these three mandates, what would you call this organization? Radical or conservative? Radical or conservative? What will you call it? Extremely conservative. Because it is trying to bring back status quo and it is asking the monarchies to be now protected. It is a very conservative body. So now tell me one thing based on your basic experience. When you suppress something, what happens? When you suppress something, what happens? Outburst. Now do you get it why in 1848 there was a revolution? Because it was an outburst on the conservatism of Metternich. Now, if this makes sense, I want to bring all of these things together. Can I do that? Which is Metternich Order, Revolution of 1848, Napoleon III, and this story. Can I do that? Sure. Thank you. Now, very simply, try to understand this. There is a certain timeline we are working with. One second. There's a certain timeline we are working with. That timeline is of Europe and France between 1789 to 1815. We have the French Revolution and Napoleon. Rather, let me split it up more. Between 1789 to 1799, we have the French Revolution. Between 1799 to 1815, we have Napoleon. But now try to understand this, that between 1815 to 1848, there is Metternich system, which was propagated through the concert of Europe. And in 1848, we get a revolution of 1848 in which people outburst. They come out of this conservatism which Metternich is talking about, suppressing nationalism everywhere. But when you suppress something, it comes out. Metternich is the Austrian chancellor who has been given the task of heading the concert of Europe. He's an officer named Metternich. Now, out of 1848, France will again become a republic in what we call as the Second Republic. And in that they will, and Ilma pay attention, they will foolishly choose Louis Napoleon as their president. But like his uncle, there was a fixed term that after 4 years, president has to be removed. Now, in 1852, once his 4-year term was getting over, he will capture power and Napoleon III will be born as the emperor, who is nothing but Louis Napoleon. And till 1870, France will be under the rule of Emperor Napoleon III. And in 1870, they will become Third Republic after his death. Now, does the Metternich system and France and Europe story make sense? Are they coming together for you? Yes? Yes, I know American Revolution is different, so it's sorted. This is a much more last. Don't give up here. Dam nahi todna idhar. You have to be a little bit attentive and you will find this very interesting. Now, the second timeline is what I am interested in teaching you now, which is the story of Germany. Is a story of Germany. And in the story of Germany, during the French Revolution period, what does Germany exist as? What does Germany exist as during the French Revolution period? Yes, Ishani, true. Very good, very good. Holy Roman Empire. And there are 314 units. It is only when it comes to the period between 1806 that now they become the Confederation of Rhine from 314 to 39. So when I will complete this unit, I will make 3 timelines for you, and you will realize these things are happening parallelly. So if we understand the above timeline, I want to discuss now the below timeline, because now there will be a Metternich consequence. There will be the consequence of revolution of 1848, and Bismarck is going to rise in 1862 period. Bismarck comes here, which I want to reach. So now are you getting that basically German and Italian unification are not independent to the French story or to Europe? They are basically consequences of the what is happening after the French Revolution and Napoleon. So can I go back to Germany? Everybody has to say yes. I am trying to simplify. You will not find this type of explanation anywhere. It is they talk independent of each other. I'm trying to bring the stories together. Yes, very good. Perfect. So you've been very patient. I'm extremely happy the way you're understanding it. I'm extremely proud of the way you're understanding it, because it is complex. It is actually complex, but you are understanding it well. So we started with the fact that Holy Roman Empire is too complicated with fragmentation, political and cultural issues. And we now understood that how the Confederation of Rhine in a way paved way for the Germans, because 314 units became 39 units. Now tell me one thing. If the Metternich order was about undoing what the French Revolution did, would they allow this unit to exist still? No, because Confederation of Rhine, in a way, is Napoleon's legacy, because Napoleon created it. So the question was that would the Metternich order let Confederation of Rhine still be there? And the answer to that question is no, because this is Napoleon's way of understanding the German states. So now let me explain it to you very clearly. We had Holy Roman Empire. And remember, all of this story doesn't really matter. All of it is to write one small 20-word introduction. What matters is the role of Bismarck, which I'm coming to. Just give me 15-20 minutes more. So, Holy Roman Empire. There are 314 units, and it is religiously and culturally complicated. Napoleon simplified this area from 314 units to 39 units and named it Confederation of Rhine. Now, obviously, when in 1815 the Metternich order comes through, France's border goes back to the 1792 border. Metternich changes the system and concept of Confederation of Rhine, and he now renames it to, he renames it to German Confederation. Now, the beauty of the German Confederation is, this is the German Confederation, which you see here. I'll mark it for you also. This is the German Confederation. Now, if you realize something, you will realize something, that now Austria and Prussia have also got involved somehow. So the German Confederation has 39 units which Napoleon already had created. But now Austria, which is more or less German speaking, and Metternich is an Austrian, Austria thinks that it's a good opportunity in a way to take control of these German states. So the system they come up with is called 39 plus 1 plus 1, which is that they create a new position of vice president and president, and together they are one parliament. They are one parliament. And the concept is that the decision making will be done with 41 units in mind. But now the question was, both Prussia and Austria had given up territory to create the German Confederation. And you can see here very clearly that Prussia has given up this much of its area and Austria has given up this much of its area to basically create the German Confederation. Now tell me one thing, who has lost more territory relative to its size, Prussia or Austria? Prussia. Prussia is this bigger country, and you see it has lost most of it to German Confederation. So in a way, who should get the president's position? Prussia. Prussia has lost more or less everything, so Prussia should get the president's position. But no. The point is, Metternich is an Austrian. Austria is given the position of the president, and Prussia is given the position of the vice president, all based on their own internal rivalry and nationalism. Now the German Confederation comes into existence, in which there are 39 units which are presided over by a vice president, which is Prussian, and a president who is Austrian. Now, if I'm a Prussian, would I like this arrangement? See, Prussia can't resist it because the Congress of Vienna is doing this. The Congress of Vienna is mandating it. So if I'm a Prussian, I won't like it. So now the German Confederation, which is 39 plus Prussia plus Austria, there is a rivalry which will become very important. And that rivalry will be Prussia versus Austria over who will dominate who will dominate the German states? Now, can anybody give me a wild guess? What would be the nationality of Bismarck? Why Prussia and Austria ceding their territories? Because that is what Metternich wanted, which is first cede some territory and then capture full power. Yes, he was Prussian. He was Prussian. The unification of Germany is nothing but the unification of German states by Prussia. Now, is it making sense that why am I talking about this in a certain way? The point is very straightforward. Napoleon they started like this. Now they became German Confederation of Rhine. He paved the way for nationalism to rise. Napoleon paved the way for nationalism to rise. But the German Confederation was where the real problem started, which is this pro-Austrian policy which Metternich followed irritated the Prussians, and now the Prussians are going to find a way somehow to unify these 39 units with them. And this is basically the second phase of our discussion. So, first phase of discussion was this: Holy Roman Empire becoming the Confederation of Rhine. Second phase of discussion is how Prussia will try to unify the 39 states. Can I discuss this part? Which is, what does Prussia do? What is a very comical thing which is going to happen? And thereafter, Bismarck is going to come into the picture. Which language do the Prussians speak? German only. But towards this area, what is common to the areas which is ceded is all speak German in that sense. German is the unifying feature here. Now, pay attention. Pay attention. Very beautiful thing is going to happen. So, 1 second. Yes. Now, between 1806 and 1815, what has happened? Confederation of Rhine. Then 1815, it becomes German Confederation. And this German Confederation is important because it is Prussia versus Austria. Now, somehow the Prussians have to make the 39 states feel that Austria is not doing anything for them. This is the basic rivalry. So what the Prussians come up with is called Zollverein. Pay attention, not Wolverine, not Wolverine, Zollverein. Pay attention, please. Zollverein. Zollverein is basically a customs union, which is one custom area. So what Prussia does, it adds these 39 units with itself and says in 1818 that, see, previously you had to pay import-export duty or any form of cess or duty at multiple points. But what Prussia says to these 39 states is, don't worry, let's become one custom union. If somebody pays tax in Prussia, he has to not pay tax across this whole sector. This is a very unique thing because without political union, they have become one economic union. A very good example of, yes, Chaitanya, is EU. EU is one custom union. EU is custom union. In EU, if you pay tax, for example, in France, then you don't have to pay anywhere else. If you pay it in Denmark, you then again don't have to pay anywhere else. Same way, Zollverein was a custom union which Prussia developed so as to show to the 39 states, see, we all are together and see, we are working to make the 39 states simple, better administration. All of this is to basically undercut the Austrian power. Zollverein was there to undercut Austria's influence. Basically to tell the people, see, I am trying to do it. Prussia wasn't president, but it was vice president. Do you really think that Prussia was doing this whilst advertising it on the newspaper or on the TV? No, everything was done very secretly. And Austria was excluded also very secretly. When Austrians used to ask the Prussians, they said, no, nothing. Zollverein, small idea, nothing big. It is not the era of big politics. It is the era of secret politics. So Zollverein is to basically show to the 39 states that Prussia is better than Austria. Understand the purpose of Zollverein? Do you understand the purpose of Zollverein? Very good. Now the real comedy will start. See, 1815, 1818, 1848. Confederation, whether not confederation, but German Confederation will be there. And since 1818, Zollverein was undercutting the Austrian influence. Now, if you remember, we've all just done it 15 minutes back, is that in 1848, there will be a reaction. Very bad reaction to the Metternich conservatism. Metternich, in a way, stifled freedom of speech. He even went into universities. Professors were arrested. Whoever talked about nationalism, Metternich used to stifle it. And in France, people became extremely angry with the Metternich order, and they will overthrow it through the revolution of 1848. And now it will spread across Europe, and it will also spread to Germany. And when it will spread to Germany in 1848, now the people will come together. All the German states, what Napoleon had done invariably, unintentionally, people will come together and say, enough of this rule by Zollverein, rule by Austria and Prussia. Let's do one thing. Let's meet at Frankfurt. And this is called the Frankfurt People's Parliament. In Frankfurt, the Frankfurt Parliament is going to meet, where scholars, teachers, nationalists are going to come together, and they will try to unify Germany. But now they had a question in front of them. The question was, how should this Germany look like? One is the concept of Kleindeutsch, which is little Germany, and the other one is called Grossdeutsch, big Germany. And this is basically 39 plus Prussia only, and this is 39 plus Prussia plus Austria. Guess what did they choose? Guess what did they choose? What did they choose? Little. They chose little Germany. Basically, Zollverein strategy had worked, because the people, when it came to choosing the leadership, they chose Prussia as the leader rather than Austria as the leader. So it's the Zollverein mindset which succeeded. But now imagine, I'm setting a scene. People take a call. Yes, Prussia is going to be our leader. Prussian administration, Prussian minister had been working since 30 years for this moment to come to existence. Now the people go to Prussia. And they go to Prussia, and they meet the Prussian king. And they say to the Prussian king, these people, that we are the Frankfurt Parliament. We have chosen to unify Germany under the leadership of Russia. We want Russia to be the leader of our country as a constitutional monarch. We want you to be our monarch. Is this dream come true for Russia? Is this dream come true for Russia? Yes, it is. This is what Russia wanted. That Russia gets the leadership, it had lost too much territory, it becomes the leader of these 39 states. Years of hard work, solving everything had built up this point. And the king of Russia says, yes, who are you? Frankfurt Parliament, meaning people. I don't take power from people. I don't. Only I take power from kings. Now the minister of this Russian king says, what dumb mountain king are you? We were trying to do this for 30 years. And when the people came to you said, I don't take power from people, I will deliver from the king. I will only take power from the king. You are just people. I can't take from people. You are just small subjects. And this fool literally denies what the Frankfurt Parliament says. And as soon as the Frankfurt Parliament is denied what it has said, the revolution stops there, and the Frankfurt Parliament dissolves itself, and we go back to square one. They are basically dumb. That is the point. That Russian king was so dumb that the Russian king became so frustrated that there was a revolution in Russia, and Russia became a constitutional monarchy. They said, we have been building up this for such a long time. 30 years of solving you denied them. So very simply what is going to happen is 1848 revolution is not going to be successful because the monarch of Russia died, the leadership of the Frankfurt Parliament, and therefore they will all back to the same sum 39 plus 1, and in consequence Russia will rather go to a revolution and become a constitutional monarchy by 1850. Does this make sense in this point? Because the story is still not over. Now our Messiah is going to come, which is Otto I Bismarck. And we talk about him. What is the Austrian Contour that really happened? If Austrian Contour, they will not take anything. Okay. So we started with the Holy Roman Empire. Then we got Confederation of Rhine. Then they got German Confederation. And then they got Frankfurt Parliament. And then they got again German Confederation. So we are back to square one because of the whole drama which Russian king did. So Russia, in all of this, Russia became a constitutional monarch. Anybody has any issue in any of this? Because now I go into the third phase, which is the most important, which is related to a person called Otto von Bismarck. King was a fool. Yes, he was a fool. Yes, the Europeans are not very smart. Yes, a musical culture of power. Yes, okay. Can I talk about phase 3? This is where the question comes from. Now, very simply, in the examination, All of this is for writing an introduction. All of this is for writing an introduction. That how people try to unify Germany through the French Parliament, but that was not possible because of the foolishness of the Russian king. That is it. French Parliament was not because of the revolution of 1848. The reaction to the response to the German order. Now, we know that 1848 did not work. And with 1848 not working, the concept of racing straightforward. And it had to be a person who would have taken leadership to basically unify Germany now. Now, phase 3. One second, I can find phase here. Phase 3. We are in 1860. It has been 12 years since Prussia had become a constitutional monarchy, and the Metternich order more or less had fizzed out, had been diluted. Napoleon III was now ruling France, and German states had still not actually unified. Now in 1862, a person called Otto von Bismarck will become the Prime Minister of Prussia. And because the King of Prussia was not very keen with this constitutional monarchy thing, there was always a tussle between the parliament and the king. But Bismarck was that person who everybody accepted. They thought that, okay, he's a no-nonsense person. He's a conservative also, but he's also radical. So Otto von Bismarck was liked by everybody when it came to Prussia. And that is why he was chosen as the Prime Minister also of Prussia. Now, 1862, in the budget session of Prussia, Otto von Bismarck is going to give a very important speech. And that is called the Blood and Iron speech. In the Blood and Iron speech, Bismarck is going to argue something very big. He will say that the revolution of 1848 and Frankfurt Parliament shows us one thing, that people cannot unite Germany. What can unite Germany is only two things, blood and iron, which is military power, sacrifice, and diplomacy. And it is in this speech that Bismarck takes an oath that I will unite Germany, I will unite Prussia with Germany whilst removing Austria from it. Now, when we look at the map of German Confederation, the biggest obstacle which Bismarck has is which country? Austria. Austria is the biggest problem in unification. It will not allow unification. So now Bismarck has to play a game. And that is why sometimes Bismarck is also called a very, very good diplomat. And that is why UPSC wants you to study unification of Germany, Italy, because for an IFS officer, Bismarck shows you how diplomacy can do wonders. Now, see, in 1860, the problem is that attacking Austria is not the problem. For Prussia, attacking Austria is not the problem. The problem is that if the three other great powers, Russia, Britain, and France, if they wake up, which is Napoleon III, Great Britain and Russia, if they wake up, then would Prussia stand a chance against Austria? No. These three powers have to remain silent for any action to be done. Now you see how Bismarck plays a game. See, in the period between 1862 to 63, there was a rebellion which happened in Poland. There was a rebellion which happened in Poland. This is Napoleon the Third, not Napoleon. There was a rebellion which happened in Poland. And whilst everybody in Prussia said, let us help the Polish get independence because we are also fighting for our nationalism. But Bismarck doesn't do that. Bismarck travels to Russia to meet the Tsar. Tsar is basically the title of the king. Tsar, you would have seen this spelling also. Tsar. Tsar is king. He goes and meets the Tsar. And he says to the Tsar, I have a new army. Very beautiful army, modern army, very must, very good army. I have not used it. Why don't you take this army and use it on the Polish and suppress their nationalism? The Tsar says, nothing comes for free. Why are you giving me assistance? So Bismarck says to Russia, to the Tsar, see, I only ask one thing from you. You take my army, you suppress the Polish. We will not say anything. But I am going to attack Austria because I want to unite German states into Prussia. And when I attack Austria, do not respond. Do not respond. Act like nothing happened. Stand in the corner facing the other side. I am not asking for assistance. I am not asking for help. I am only asking for benevolent neutrality. That you don't do anything. You just face the other direction saying, no, nothing is happening in the background. Kuch hua hi nahi. And the Tsar finds this deal very, very lucrative. So the Tsar says, okay, I am ready to use your army and I will not say anything when you will attack Austria. So, first obstacle covered. Why will Russia attack Poland? Because Poland always wanted independence out of Russia. They were not still an independent country. Now, it's the French who he has to manage. Now you see the level of drama which Bismarck can do and how he uses the emotional card. Now, Bismarck goes to France. Everybody is following me till this point? No issue? This is what is going to come in the examination. Role of Bismarck. Now, he travels to France. And when he goes to France, he meets Napoleon III. This is why I had to tell you the story of Napoleon III, which is he's the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. His uncle was Napoleon Bonaparte or Napoleon. Now he goes to Napoleon III and he says to Napoleon III, Khoon kholta hai mera. My blood boils when I see the Metternich order and these Austrians laughing. Wasn't it an Austrian who humiliated your uncle? Wasn't he the one who actually did everything? So Napoleon III says, yes. Tha to Austrian. It was an Austrian only. So Napoleon III, now emotional, Bismarck says to Napoleon III, I want to take revenge for you. I am going to attack Austria. Don't say anything. And Napoleon III says, okay, I will not say anything. You attack Austria. You take revenge for my uncle. Ilma, everything what I'm saying is written in an official way in the PPT, so you don't have to remember the stories. Try to understand the story. I'm trying to dramatize it so that you understand it well. You just have to write it in the examination. Don't worry about that. Now, who is left? Britain. Now, Bismarck travels to Great Britain and he meets the leading parliamentarians and the British. Bismarck somehow is able to convince the British that Austria is too powerful. And by unifying Germany, he would be able to curb the power of Austria, and this Metternich order and this Austria being too oversmart will end. Bismarck is from Prussia, yes. Now, Britain will agree with Bismarck, but they will regret this decision very soon, as I will tell you when I will teach you Industrial Revolution. But in a stroke of diplomatic prowess and what we call as a master class, Bismarck will be able to convince Russia not to respond, France not to respond, and Britain not to do anything when he starts a war in 1866 in what is called the Austro-Prussian Wars. Austro-Prussian Wars. And very decisively, when Prussia will attack Austria, over a very minor pretext he will pick up, nobody really believed in Bismarck. Over a very minor pretext, Bismarck is going to fight with Austria, and against all odds, in the Battle of Sadowa, again don't have to remember the name, Prussia will defeat Austria and unify this whole sector. Unify this whole sector. I will read this out from the PPT, don't worry. Just follow me. So, in 1866, Bismarck succeeds in what his previous generations had not been able to do. But UK was also a crown. Why did they have problem with Metternich order? Because Metternich order, under Metternich, Austria had become too oversmart. At this point of time, Austria is the common enemy of everyone. Austria had become too overconfident and oversmart. Egos of nations comes through. And before you ask me one more innocent question, I will tell you one thing very clearly. In world history and in international relations, there are no permanent allies and there are no permanent enemies. Understand this point. There is no permanency in allies and enemies. Everything changes. So very simply, Bismarck, through his diplomatic game, isolated Austria, and whilst isolating Austria, he went for a war in 1866 and won against Austria to unify Germany, except for one sector which was still left. Can I now complete the story and we can then read the PPT out? Yes, sir. Okay. The area which was really left is this area. And this area is very decisively called, and you would have heard it for sure, Alsace and Lorraine. Alsace and Lorraine is a very, very fertile area. You know, he's taken this also, obviously. He's taken this also. He's taken all of it. Alsace and Lorraine is a very, very fertile area, very resource-rich area. But now Bismarck has a problem. Bismarck's problem is that Alsace and Lorraine is controlled by France. is controlled by France. And if you remember, he had taken the favor of France in fighting with Austria. So now Bismarck is in a little bit of a dilemma. What to do? He wants Alsace and Lorraine, but he cannot, in a way, go against France very outrightly without any reason. And France may not be very powerful, but it is still powerful. So Bismarck leaves this issue for 2-3 years. He's already unified the Prussian sector with the 39 states, but Alsace and Lorraine is left. But something very interesting is going to happen in 1869-70. What is going to happen is that in Spain, the king will die. The king will die. Under European monarchy systems, do all dynasties have a say in appointing a king in any other country? Yes or no? Yes. That is the pretext of the Austrian War of Succession and the 7 Years' War. Now what happens is that Prussia nominates a king for Spain, and France also nominates a king for Spain. But now, as soon as the French get to know that Bismarck has nominated a king, Napoleon III says to Bismarck, remove your candidate, I helped you, and you will never claim to any throne in Europe generally. And it is here that the public opinion in Prussia became very, very anti-French. And Bismarck saw it as a very important moment in which he could attack France. And in 1870-71, Prussia will attack France. And against all odds, in the Battle of Sedan, Prussia will defeat France and take Alsace-en-Lorraine, and Napoleon III will die just after this war, and France will become a republic in the form of the Third Republic. And this is how Bismarck consolidated and made Germany what it was and what he had thought of in Central Europe. This is basically the story of the unification of Germany. Now, if you allow me, I'll read it out from the PPT. In the PPT, the Bismarck part is very well written. It is very elaborate. If you write it in the examination, you will automatically get an answer for 250 words. Can I do that? But generally, does it really make sense what I said to you? What I said to you, does it make sense? Yes? I will also make the two timelines again, and we will consolidate and leave for today. Yes? Okay, perfect. So let's start our story on the first point itself. The unifying factor in Germany was language. German language was the basis for their linguistic nationalism, and linguistic nationalism was developing, though there were always problems of unification. Now, Napoleon was the first person who paved the way for unification of Germany, because when Napoleon captured this sector, 314 units were there, but he simplified it for administrative convenience to 39. He renamed this area from Holy Roman Empire to call it the Confederation of Rhine, and he brought in a lot of reforms. Austria-Prussia were also defeated at this point of time. So whilst Prussia went in for reform, Austria did not really do anything, and in a way, it was the trigger of Napoleon which put all of these pieces together. Now, when the Congress of Vienna met in 1815, a German confederation was created with 39 German states with the presidency of Austria and vice presidency of Prussia. This together was the main body, the Federal Diet or Bundestag, which is parliament. And Prussia was though given Rhineland, there was a lot of rivalry which will start to develop between Prussia and Austria, because Prussia lost more, Austria lost less. Now, in order to undercut from Holy Roman Empire to Confederation of Rhine to German Confederation, in order to undercut the Metternich system, which is basically a reactionary conservative order which came up under the Austrian Chancellor Metternich, the first goal of the Congress of Vienna, the Concert of Europe, was wanted to prevent French aggression and a French revolution. They wanted to restore balance of power and monarchies, and the royal family should be put back to the throne and they should be protected. Now, the solution which the Prussians found to the what we call as Metternich order was in 1818 there were 67 tariff zones which were there. Sir, what did Russia have to do with Austria? Why did they have? Russia and Prussia both have one common border with Poland, and Poland was fighting against Russia. Rather than helping the Polish, Prussia helped Russia. So they created a customs union. Internal custom was abolished. They founded the Zollverein, which was for the first time in history all economic union without political federation. For the first time, the German territories became one fiscal and commercial unit, and Zollverein united the Germans into a bond of mutual economic interest. It united them under the leadership of Prussia and made them accustomed in excluding Austria from the German body itself. Now, after 1815, nationalism did start to develop in the universities in Germany. However, from public festivals to different customs which were trying to foster what we call as nationalism in Germany, there will be a student called Karl Sand. He will assassinate a pro-unification writer in a university in 1819, and Metternich will use this to bring in a lot of supervision and a lot of different decrees, which are called the Karlsbad decrees, to basically suppress nationalism. All this suppression between 1819 will lead to what we call as the Revolution of 1848. And in this, the liberal and nationalists came together at Frankfurt to basically find a solution for this issue. And the Frankfurt Parliament will now start writing a constitution for a German state. Now, in this, there was a very important conversation which was happening between the professors, lawyers, and businessmen, that what are the two types of Germany they should have. Should they have Greater Germany, which is Grossdeutsch, Austria, Bohemia, Moravia, plus Hungary, plus the parts of Austria, plus Prussia, plus 39 states, or it should be Kleindeutsch, which is excluding fully Austria and only Prussia as leader. Eventually, the majority voted for Kleindeutsch, and when the crown was offered the leadership of this German unification or German state, he refused on the grounds that he would not accept the crown he only accept the crown from princes, not from elected body, and the assembly will be disbanded in 1849. Now, the 1849 or 1848 revolution was generally not very successful everywhere because it was not backed by people of action, but by people of what we call as thinkers who used to talk about a lot of things but not act. And the absolutist monarchies came back with a lot of force, but in Prussia, a man was now rising who basically is going to use the constitutional monarchy of Prussia to capture power. Now, from this point forward, it is relevant for the examination. So please pay attention. All of that was context. Now, when we talk about Bismarck, Bismarck took the opportunity between the what we call the conflict between the king and the parliament to capture power, or in a way come to power in that regard. The king wanted a regular army, the parliament said no regular army. Bismarck was looked upon as a die-hard conservative and he would also help the king, but also the parliament was very, very pro, and that is why he becomes the prime minister of Prussia in 1862. Now, in 1862, he gives the famous Blood and Iron speech in which he argued that democracy could never unify Germany, only military force could, which is basically Frankfurt Parliament could never do it. Now, this is what you will write in the examination. If you write all of these points in one paragraph, in the way you write an answer, you will get 250 words. I have actually made it in the same way. So, what does he do? First is that he strengthens the Zollverein so that his economic basis is perfect. Then he also does treaties with Britain, Belgium, and Italy so that he can actually, and when very important thing, UPSC is never asked a question out of this area. In the past 20 years, no question on unification of Germany and Italy. So all of this is based on the fact that one day UPSC will lose their mind and they will ask you this question. So very simply, Britain, Belgium, Italy, he did treaties with, and he made sure that his economic interest was protected. Now he will start his diplomatic game. In 1863, there will be a revolt in Russia where the Polish were asking for independence. Bismarck deliberately took an opposing stand, offering military support to the Tsar to suppress the Poles, and he was hoping that Russia would support Prussia in a war against Austria. Thereafter, the Russians were happy or were willing to adopt the attitude of benevolent neutrality. Bismarck then met Napoleon III in 1865, and he too also favored a limited unification of Prussia with the 39 states itself. And then to the British, he argued that a weak Austria is good for geopolitics, and this miscalculation is going to lead to the British to accept the fact that Prussia was doing the good for Central Europe. So, through his diplomatic maneuvering, Bismarck had removed three major obstacles for unification and isolated Austria in Central Europe. Now we will have two wars, one called the Austrian War of 1866. Bismarck was not contemplating war, but then finding a minor issue as very, very opportunistic, he will fight with Austrians. In 1866, when he will fight, at the Battle of Sadova, against all odds, the Prussians will win against the Austrians, and he will be able to unify most of Germany at this point of time. Whilst people had not supported or even not believed in Bismarck, now people became a fan of Bismarck. However, the next issue which remained was Alsace and Lorraine. And when it came to Alsace and Lorraine, Bismarck was hesitating to not actually go into this and maybe leave Alsace and Lorraine. But when in 1870 the Spanish throne felt vacant, French people were of the opinion that Prussia was becoming too powerful, and the French made a number of intolerable demands that the Prussian candidate should be withdrawn and Prussia should never claim to the throne of Spain. Using this as a pretext, the Prussians are going to attack the French, and as always, the French are very good in writing constitutions, nothing else. In the Battle of Sedan, Prussia is going to defeat France, and in 1871, German unification was complete. Bismarck had done what other generations had not been able to do, and this is basically the story of unification of Germany. Now, can I make the timeline again and consolidate everything for you? But before I do that, now are you in a position to create a certain mental picture of this whole process? I know you need revision. That I promise to you. You just need revision. Bismarck area is what really matters to you. Yes. What happens to Napoleon III? Natural death. Dies in 1871. Yes. Now, what Bismarck says to Dhavni, if I come to you today and say that let me attack, if for example US comes to India and says to India that let me attack China and take Tibet, so will India allow that, or will India favor it? India will favor it. Obviously, a weakened China is good for India. Same way, Prussia said to Britain, let me attack Austria. I will take certain territories of Austria. And Austria is too big a power right now. A weak Austria is good for Central Europe rather than a strong Austria. It's all geopolitics. This was a miscalculation on the part of the British, but the British were convinced that the Austrians were the problem in Central Europe. Why Bismarck did not occupy full France? Because that is not the way wars work. He can't just take whole of France. He just wanted that sector. He's going to take that and then seal that border. Right? Okay. After unification, Prussia ruled Germany. No, Prussia renamed itself. Bismarck became the Prime Minister of Germany. Today, Prussia is nothing but Germany. As it is, the map of Germany is going to change 2 more times. Battle of Sadova is Austria. Battle of Sedan is France. Yes. When did Napoleon die? Napoleon died in the background. I really don't care. He's not my uncle that I need to care when he died. But he died in the background. Napoleon III is more important. Can there be a comparison between Cavour and Bismarck? Yes, but that we have to discuss once I discuss Cavour with you. But that is a different concept itself. Can I consolidate the German story and we break for today and then meet on Monday to finish Italy and then start Industrial Revolution? If you found this manageable, this is the heaviest section of world history. After this, there is nothing really in this whole sector or whole course, which is basically cause, significance, consequence. That is it. What to do with the Alina? You don't have to do anything with the stories. You just have to remember these 5-6 slides. You have to remember from this point. From this point forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 slides I'm asking you to remember. Okay. Now I'm just going to consolidate everything. It is interesting. You would never do it yourself. UPSC makes you understand it. That is why you're doing it. Okay. See, if you try to understand it in this way, you will understand it better. Concept of Europe. Okay. This is the period of this is Zolverin. Then Napoleon III as emperor since 1852. So basically, it is one period. This is one period. This is the other period. It still exists. But the most important for you is this period. France, Napoleon is emperor, Holy Roman Empire defeated, Battle of Waterloo, Revolution of 1848, Napoleon III as emperor since 1852, Third Republic after Battle of Sedan, Holy Roman Empire, Confederation of Rhine, German Confederation 39 plus 1, Prussia, Austria 1818, Zollverein, German Confederation, rise of Bismarck, Austrian War, France War, unification of Germany. Now, does it make sense? And on Monday, I will add Italy to it, and you will realize that basically the events remain the same. The events remain the same. So, with this, we end for today. Have a very productive weekend. I will see you on Monday. We will talk about Italy, then we'll enter Industrial Revolution. Very, very important module, very interesting module. Last major discussion is Cavour. Thereafter, Industrial Revolution, First World War, Russian Revolution, Second World War, Cold War. Very, very internally connected and very, very well understood and very easy also. How come Austria had no idea of the meeting? All has been done in secrecy. You will get 5 questions from me. I think tomorrow it will be uploaded to your portal, so you can practice through them from whatever we've covered in these 3 modules. Don't worry about that. Why not Britain interfere in France, Germany, Austria? Why is Britain interfering? It's a world power. It's a great power. Geopolitics. Now I understand when Jaishankar criticized Europe and West for meddling into sovereignty. Yes, that is true. It is in their DNA. They have always meddled in other politics, and their own the whole European continent will be multiple times destroyed and recreated because of this tendency which they had. Right? Done. If this is okay, this is the only heaviest part. I salute your patience. Thank you so much for being patient and understanding this the way I want you to understand it. And if this is the heaviest part. After this, it's not as heavy as this. So thank you. Thank you. See you on Monday. If you don't have a question, you can leave the session. I'll see you on Monday. Take care. Russia was absolutist monarchy before 1848. After 1848, it is a constitutional monarchy. Perfect, Anjali. If it's easy for you, great. Thank you. Thank you. If you don't